Talk radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Well. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? Today is Tuesday. It is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Very excited about this show tonight and the entire week on Fade to Black. Last night, Ryan Musgrave Evans was with us live from Australia. An amazing conversation last night. Tonight, Ryan S. Wood is with us. It's kind of weird. Two Ryans, 2 nights in a row on Fade to Black. Out of the thousands of shows that I've done, that's a first for me. I thought that I had seen it all. Tonight, Ryan S. Wood is with us. We're going to be talking about the ET agenda. There's a lot. When you say something like that, everything is underneath that umbrella. We've got a lot to cover tonight. Tomorrow night, Nancy Taines is with us. We're going to be talking about the truth of ET contact. And then Thursday night, the one and only Jim Harold is with us. And so we're doing 3 nights of ET. And then Jim Harold coming in. One of the best paranormal and ghost storytellers there are out there, period. Campfire. He is the absolute best. But lately, old Jim has been dipping his toe into UFOs. So it looks like we're going to have 3.5 nights of the ET agenda this week. The other half of Thursday night will be about his new book, which is True Ghost Stories. That's Thursday night with Jim Harold. I do want to remind everybody, coming up this Sunday, that's this Sunday, right here in Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, at the Regal Cinemas, the largest theater in Los Angeles. I'll be with Billy Carson and the red carpet premiere of his new TV show, Anunnaki. That's going on this Sunday. It's an all-day event. The tickets are below. I'll see everybody there. And then coming up next month, I've got events all year long going through November. But coming up next month, June 10th through the 12th, all weekend, Disclosure Fest, Stairway to the Stars, right here in Southern California at Castaic Lake. We've got 75 acres. I think we have 6 stages. We're expecting about 10,000 people. We have room for more, but that's the goal. We've done 22,000 was the last Disclosure Fest that we did. This one we're doing at Castaic Lake instead of downtown LA. A little change of venue. We have the beach, we have camping, we have all kinds of things. To the biggest event of the year. So I'll see everybody there. That's going on next month, the weekend of June 10th through the 12th. Summer solstice. Okay. All right. Tonight, Ryan S. Wood is here, and the conversation tonight, we're going to be examining evidence that has not only been presented today and what is going on today, but also in the past, leaked government documents, his work with that, his father's work with that, the entire cover-up, technology, and his new book, which is, are you ready? What a ufologist can learn with artificial intelligence. We'll be talking about that too as well. And long bio with Ryan. I've got his websites right here, Majestic Eyes Only, Majestic Documents, and Special Operations Manual, which actually I'm going to start the conversation off with that tonight. And the links for that are below on social media and over on our website. There you go. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Ryan S. Wood. Ryan, Man, welcome. It took a long time, but we finally got you here.
Well, thanks, Jimmy. I'm looking forward to the conversation and getting a chance to update everybody on what's been happening in ufology from my perspective of crashed UFOs and government documents.
Yeah, that's, I've always been, before we get started, see, I'm so excited about you being here that I almost forgot the first time guest disclaimer. So let's get that out of the way, which is this. Ryan, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. Where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. You have to accept, and then we can move on.
I accept.
Okay, good. It's a tradition. Listen, Ryan, okay. I've been doing that for over 10 years on this show. And once in a while I forget. And I never hear the end of it. I'll have to. I end up doing the disclaimer halfway through the show because I email, Twitter lights up, the chat room. So anyway, the interest of this, obviously, we have your father, right, Bob?
Yeah.
And I have been following the two of you for as long as I can remember. And when everything started to blow up, and then the strange thing started called the internet. For a minute there, you guys owned it. You know that, right? I mean, it was a really big deal. And I remember looking at the documents and all of the research typefaces and right, all that stuff, and going through all of that and thinking to myself, this is too good. First, right? And it feels like the men in black are going to kick down my front door because I'm looking at these documents online and everything that was behind it and all of that. And looking back, this is the opening question. Looking back, did you have any idea what your dad was getting himself into and what this would do to the UFO community that continues to this day?
No, I think we were just doing what we enjoyed doing. And, his interest in ufology started in basically 1968 when he was at McDonnell Douglas and convinced his management that he wanted to do a research project on anti-gravity, which launched him into deep dive into UFOs, into abductions, into physics, and forming a small little group within Douglas Aircraft Company to do research on gravity control, which we all know that UFOs don't fly on kerosene. And that's when Stan Friedman first came to dinner when I was 15 years old, and sort of planted the seed of interest, although I really didn't get enthusiastic about it until the late 80s, where I started going to MUFON conferences, and then the leaked documents started happening through the 90s, and then the crash retrieval conferences that I did in the early 2000s, from 2003 to 2009, and then I sort of took 10, 12 years off to raise kids and keep my head down in business, and now I'm back, resurfaced with new intent. And
crazy days, right? And when you look back and then put yourself here where we are today and the discussions that are going on, it kind of reminds me of the old days, like with Don Kehoe going toe to toe and trying to get disclosure done and all of those efforts and the awareness from the Air Force and from Washington, D.C. But all of that went dead for quite a while. Now, boom, right? Did you ever expect this to be happening today like it is?
No, not at all. I mean, we were leading the charge in 2003 at the Crash Retrieval Conference about UFO crashes, and for many, many years, and it took till last basically July for Grush to come forward in front of Congress and said, yeah, I was there. I was able to knock on some doors. I know some people. I'll give you the details in a secure compartmentalized information facility. And it's all very hush-hush and classified. But yeah, there's crash retrievals. And so I felt vindicated and happy that it finally occurred, that my daughter now says, oh yeah, it's real.
The let's back up, because my interest in everything that you just said is paramount. I live in Palmdale. I am literally a mile and a half from Lockheed Skunk Works. You can see it from my backyard. Okay. That's where I am now. And with all of the revelations, not only through your efforts over the years, but with what David Grush said, the strange, I was happy. I was, like you said, you felt vindicated, and you should, except it's kind of letting everybody know that the bloodhounds are on their trail. And so if somebody from Congress shows up down the street at Skunk Works and says, we want to see the flying saucers, they open up the hangars and the hangars are empty. Is it because Grush, tipped it, showed his hand? Yeah. And that would give the opportunity for the shell game to start.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I think the shell game has always been afoot, and I don't think that any congressional, supervision or insights. I don't even think the board of directors or the presidents of Lockheed Martin, who actually is the prime suspect in my mind for accomplishing gravity control and having saucers or extraterrestrial craft, knows what's going on. It's it's all multi-layers deep and hidden, and it may be in different locations. It may be outside of Lockheed's control. Maybe it was once within their control, but now it's gone. It's someplace else. And that's my speculation on what might happen.
Now, I've said what I'm about to say a lot of times over the years, and that is, those who know the truth about UFOs and the agenda and what is actually going on, we will never know their names. And if you know somebody's name, if it's in public, then they don't know. They're one step away, right? Would you agree with that kind of statement?
Oh, yeah. I mean, can you imagine the responsibility if you're the MJ12 control group responsible for the people? I mean, it would be, a monthly polygraph tests. You're living underground. You work for 5 years, and then your sort of brain gets erased or revitalized or something, and you forget what you did within reason, and they have a new batch. And so that's the sort of approach that you would take. And besides psychological screening of people, they would definitely choose the people that would, follow orders and, commit murder. I mean,
right.
It's like a Navy SEAL team without morals.
Well, it's exactly how David Grush presented it. And as crazy as that sounded, which was the negative part, the scary part, the threats part, but that's that world. I mean, if there is a secret to be kept, that would be it. That would be this. I can't think of anything else that would be more secret. Maybe Atlantis.
The things that I would think they're really trying to keep control of is the secret on gravity, how you control gravity, probably the secrets on ESP, if they've figured that out, telepathy, and mind control, which the ETs certainly have in spades. And then maybe the secrets around human biology and biological weapons associated with the ETs, or, well, what's the most complex organism on planet Earth? It's the human genome. And understanding that, or, only 3% of our DNA, we understand what it's for, and the rest of it is deemed junk, but maybe it's not junk. So, I mean, there's a whole aspect of biology that I think is could be a potential immortality secret, so to speak.
Now, and so making such a generalized statement like I just made about, you wouldn't know the names of the people in the know, but looking back with your father and the meetings that he was a part of, and those documents that certainly have come out over the last couple of years, but also going further back that have already been released. There's your father's name present at the meeting, Bob Wood, McDonnell Douglas, and with some pretty specific people at these meetings. Was your father in the know, or was he one step away?
Oh, no, he was definitely one step away or more steps away. And he tried to get close to that process several times. He had friends in the CIA and knocked on the door and said, I really want to learn about the physics of UFOs and so forth. And he was rebuffed. He told me that story. His work at McDonnell was not based on any government parts or science that was given to them to reverse engineer. It was based on their own intellectual capability to try to compete against Lockheed or the other aerospace companies, because they had a competitive advantage that they wanted to definitely learn how gravity works before their competitors did. And it had tremendous value for the Air Force and so forth. So that was his experience. In that process, he'd read, 50 UFO books in, 68. And that sort of launched his interest. My mother was highly skeptical of the whole subject matter, and said, Bob, when are they going to pay you any money for this hobby that you're working on? So it was sort of a labor of love. And the MAJIC documents, just briefly, just so people know, there's some 3,500 pages of leaked documents, some photocopies, some original, some typeset, some very sophisticated, some more pedestrian, some think pieces by Einstein and Oppenheimer, and others are just sort of military communiques and things like that. Over 7 different sources spanning about 18 years. So it's a broad swath of knowledge. Some were film and some were mail drops. So all this stuff is on the MAJICdocuments.com website that people can look at, or you can get in my books, MAJIC Eyes Only. And that's sort of the corpus of MAJIC documents. And it talks about lots of different things, which we can get into.
So let's actually start there, where I was going to start the show off, and putting the MAJIC, the 8.5 by 11 part, putting that to the side, but Psalm 1. Okay, yeah. Now I have a graphic arts background. That's how I made my living when I was a kid. I should say. I'm 60. But when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, I was a graphic designer and paste up and typesetting and camera rooms and all of that stuff. So I know what is involved. Okay. So when I saw, now for everybody out there that doesn't know what we're talking about, it's SOM -1, Psalm 1, not PSALM from the Bible, right? It's
Right.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
Psalm 1. It's SOM, SOM, Special Operations Manual. Now, when I first saw it, I thought to myself, this is authentic. I know what I'm looking for. I know. And when that came out, and it's from 1954, but when it was brought to the public, you have to understand what typesetting is and what is involved and how that's done. That is a professional printing job and layout and typesetting and everything else that was involved. That is not a hoaxed book.
Right.
Manual. It's not. It's authentic. So when you first saw it, I know your dad got it first, but what do you make of it? Because when the government says nothing to see here, and then we have the Special Operations Manual, clearly somebody's not telling the truth.
Yeah, clearly. So just for context, I mean, it was mailed in 1994 to Don Berliner, who was an Aviation Week and space reporter in Washington, D.C., as undeveloped film from La Crosse, Wisconsin. And when it was developed, there was a change control page, and there was a whole series of typeset documents with a man holding the pages open and taking a picture of it. And so it's called Extraterrestrial Entities Technology Recovery and Disposal. It has a scope, how to tell the public what happened, how to do the cover-ups, where to ship the bodies, where to ship the parts, how to identify the craft. It's very much a field manual for recovery teams. And descriptions of type 1 and type 2 extraterrestrial biological entities. Type 1 is a typical sort of gray. And so after you read it and you go, oh my God, it's so gripping, you ask yourself, well, how do I know this is authentic? And that goes to some of your earlier comments, Jimmy, where, okay, so it's 1994. Quark Express is like version 0 in the mind of the software programmer, which is now called InDesign. And you realize that, it's definitely typeset. We went to Robert McCarter, who's a retired government printing employee who wrote the style manual for the government printing office. So this is a big, thick book on government printing styles. And we slid the original negatives across his card table in Virginia when my father and I were there. And he looked at it and said, well, by the title, I think it's fake. But then he started flipping through it and said, oh, the Z is raised off the line, which is an artifact of the hot lead printing press. And he said, by that point alone, and of course, all the typesetting and formatting is correct. It's definitely authentic. And furthermore, I think it was printed by the CIA down on 10th Street. So he had a wealth of perspective just on the typed document alone. And I did a lot of research into the provenance and checking doing the FBI thing. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? And
can I jump in right there?
Sure, yeah.
If I can. What did you find out about the provenance? And I want to jump back into, the contents of it is one thing. Typesetting, that just you and I talking about that, we understand what we're talking about. 99% of the audience has never even heard the word. right?
Yeah.
No, and you know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
we need to circle back to what typesetting is and why it's so important in this conversation. But what did you find out about the provenance?
Yeah, so it was mailed from La Crosse, Wisconsin, in the Quillen Pharmacy, right about the time of the Oshkosh Fly-In Air Show, which many of the audience may have heard of. It's the largest experimental small aircraft show in the world that happens every year outside of La Crosse, Wisconsin. But it was the manual itself was stamped on the first inside page. Kirkland AFB N.MEX, Building 21, Unit KB88. So this was a rubber style stamp there. So I went to Kirkland Air Force Base and talked to the facilities manager, and sure enough, there was a Building 21, and got a picture of it. Sort of a cinder block building. It was old. It may be torn down by now. I don't know. I haven't been back. And then within the change control page, which is the first page inside, it says such and such author or officer by authority of MJ1 or MJ3 on such and such a date, exchanged page 18 and 19. And there's two initials, JRT and EWL. And I went to the Albuquerque phone book and found those initials in 1954 and 55. And they were a captain and a lieutenant colonel, I think. And they both lived on Perimeter Road in Kirkland Air Force Base, like 4 houses from each other. And so with that, I felt like, oh, yeah, well, that's got to be authentic with that sort of level of subtlety around the provenance.
Now, what is so important about all of that is when you're looking at something like this, it is that kind of attention to detail that if it was going to be faked, hoaxed, right, a fraud, that kind of detail is overlooked. And you can't, it's nearly impossible. Okay, so who was living where in 1954 on Kirkland in such and such, right? Right. And what were their initials and so forth? Let's get them. No, it simply wouldn't be there. That's the kind of detail that is most intriguing and most interesting. I understand. And so do you, Ryan. People want to know about the alien bodies. They want to know about the flight. They want to get to the exciting pages of the manual. But those little details like that would be overlooked by somebody just creating a fake manual.
Yeah, I mean, when it came out, we got lots of objections or concerns. It's a fake because they used the war seal in 1954, and it was officially not recommended to be used past 1950. But there was many other examples of manuals that were a later date that had this war seal on the front cover. Or and it's a fake because, well, the etymology is different. Screwdrivers is 2 words instead of 1 word in the manual, and it's now 1 word. And so the claim is it might be a fake because they didn't use 1 word instead of 2 words. But actually, it turns out to be a hallmark of authenticity. That's what's called the etymology, or the wordsmithing of it. And so there's lots of subtleties that you can go through to try to authenticate it, but it's very pragmatic in how you do the cover stories and where do you ship the bodies and the parts. But fundamentally, if it was a fake for some reason, why in the world would you send it to the press? You would leak it to the Russians or something like that. And the mission of the statement is, don't mess with the U.S. We have ET technology and we'll fry your ass, or something to that effect. And so much of the Majestic documents sort of fail the psychological warfare test of, was there a specific purpose in leaking it to a specific individual to try to get them to believe a lie? So it gets into a complicated rat hole about who did what to who and why, and are you trying to tell the truth or shed a different story with different people? But all in all, and I've written about this, and there's papers on the website, that the whole notion of this is psychological warfare just doesn't hold water.
The other part, when it comes to Psalm 1 and the operations manual, I remember the psychological warfare part of this, and that if this was leaked and the Russians got it, that's what the CIA did. Yeah, it makes sense, right? I could see that. There's a certain amount of credibility to that part of it. But the other part is when you read through the manual, it seems and it reads like the military, right? It's not a scare tactic. This is instructions on what to do in the field when you encounter this, when you have this, when you have a crashed craft, what to do with an alien body, right? And how to pack it, right? how to preserve it. That's not psychological warfare. This is telling somebody in the field exactly what to do. You are going to take out the manual and see what the next step is, right?
Yeah, that's right. And actually another thing that I did in the 2000 timeframe, when plagiarism software was just started getting exciting for colleges and they started to use it, is I took the whole manual and fed it into this plagiarism tool, and it came back. It didn't say it was plagiarized. It came back with other examples of military manuals that are sort of similar in their style, as you point out, Jimmy, in how they do these things, a matter of fact and very military-like or action-oriented. No fluff.
Well, and isn't that how it is?
Right.
I mean, it's just I just don't get it. But the Psalm 1 is some of the best reading out there, and the website for Psalm 1 is below. Everybody can go click and check it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I mentioned typesetting earlier, and the typesetting is it's the Ford Model T conversation. So for all of you young ones out there, you need to understand what we're saying. Before computers, right? Now, what we used, I worked at Bell Labs and in the ED&D, Engineering, Design, and Development Department. And at Bell Labs, we had a CompuGraphic, okay? And CompuGraphic was the leading typeset, cutting-edge technology. But it was a film roll that went on that was your type, and it was a piece of film, and that spun, and you would type in what you want the page or the layout to be, and then it would print an image. You take the film canister out, go into the darkroom, and develop it. Then you would have your pages, and then that would have so that when we say typesetting, that's how it was done back in the day. Even before that, it was single letters and things.
That's exactly how the Special Operations Manual was on a monotype modern printing press. So it was more along the the Gutenberg Bible approach of
Right.
individual letters stacked in little rows of metal that formed a whole page and then was, pounded out deliberately.
And it was you were an artist. I
Right.
mean, the printers and the typesetters back then, very, very skilled job to lay out a page. And today we take things for granted. People don't get it. But when I look at the dating of this, now I'm not talking about 1954. I'm talking about the big reveal in 1994, right? Even back then, it was a difficult thing to pull off, right? You need artists and graphic designers. You need writers. You need people, historians. I'm talking about if it was faked.
Right.
You need all of that. You need a team behind you to pull that off. Now, if it's an operations manual that was done in 1954, that's a whole different thing. That was a program that was laid out. I'm talking about of people. Right? And that's the difference. And that's why typesetting in this context is a very, very important point about this manual. You just can't fake this back then.
Right. I agree completely. And it's a stunning piece of work, from following the style manual accurately to the artifacts of the hot lead printing press, to the provenance, to the entomology of screwdriver and first aid, the way it's capitalized, to all the various references in the back that are accurate, to the section that's around identifying the craft, of what they call UFO-B, UFO Object Identification Guide. It wasn't included in the pages, but it was subsequently released in a different typeset or different typewriter form, this UFO Object Identification Guide through Freedom of Information. But when it's retyped into the format, all the page numbers match in the table of contents. So it just fits like a glove, and it's in the right era. So there's lots of authenticity points for it. So they clearly had crashed hardware and had a process to recover them in 1954. And we certainly had Roswell in 48, and the LA air raids in 42, and Grush's comment of the 33 Italian crash, and there's stuff back in 1909 in the UK of a large cigar shape, and then all the way back to 1897 in Aurora, Texas, where there's a marker, a state historical marker for the Aurora, Texas UFO crash.
Now, how many, Grush made his comments. Do you have a number in your head? How many crash retrievals have there been?
Well, that's a great question. When I first wrote MAJIC EYES ONLY, MAJIC, in 2005, the first edition, I had 74 crash cases reviewed, documented, updated, sort of a corpus of crashes, some more credible than others. But then I republished my book, MAJIC EYES ONLY, this last December or January, and there's 104 cases in the new book, expanded to 500 pages, and I left another 3 or 4 on my desk because I just wanted to get it done and out to the public. So I would believe that a reasonable number, because I'm over selecting for US and English speaking worlds, I'm not doing a good job in China or Japan or Asia or Russia or Africa. I think the right number is probably a couple hundred throughout time. Sort of modern times. That past 2-3 centuries. So I think that's my best guess at this point.
Now, if you were going to take a best guess, on how many craft are in our possession today being studied and reverse engineered. What's that number?
Well, I would say the majority of the 104. I think that if there was a crash and the military came, they would pick it up and cart it away. The question is it an intact craft or partially destroyed craft or operational craft? And so I think if you go to the operational craft or fully intact craft, I think it's probably on the order of at least 20 different.
Really? You think it's that big? Wow.
I mean, many of them were, it was intact when it came down and people hauled it off whole. Now, whether or not they got it to work or, but the reporting tends to be that these are hybrid biological, mechanical, maybe telepathy, guided craft. And so it may be simply impossible to get it to work, but it may be enough to try to reverse engineer what they could pull out of it. They could do the material science and they could pull out bits and pieces of the guts of it, try to disassemble it and figure out what each component did or how it might work. So
yeah, well, see, here's the thing with that. And when I hear skeptics chime in on this subject, they don't have a clue. They're not thinking about this correctly. Because if you go back in time in a time machine and you go 300 years ago to the smartest person on planet Earth, Isaac Newton, and you hand him a cell phone with a dead battery, right? With a dead battery. He can't turn it on. And just hand it to him. Does he? No.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any idea what it is. And you can take it apart. You can look at it. But if you can't power it up, right? It's just a thing, and so can you imagine trying to take it apart? We can't even do that today. Try to change a battery. But he wouldn't have any idea that it's a communications device or that you can watch movies on it or it's a storage device or you can take pictures or you can shoot video, or you can send email. All of the no, he wouldn't have any idea, period. Yeah, and this guy wrote the book on physics, right?
Well, at least that part of it. I think Einstein had something to do with it, but
you understand. And so when we have that kind of technology in our possession, and try to make it fly without the instruction manual, without the Psalm 1, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think it was without help, or but you could probably get some parts and try to look at the material science, which Linda Moulton Howe has done with her layered bismuth magnesium parts, and others. The Umatobo crash in Brazil had pure magnesium 26, which was rare. You got to engineer that. So there's a few bits and pieces, and there's discussions by Corso in his book about fiber optics and night vision goggles and integrated circuits, and in his time in the Foreign Technology Office of the Army from primarily the Roswell crash, or in the Majestic documents themselves, there's the White Hot report, which describes a neutronic power plant. It gives 10 different descriptions of uranium hexafluoride and various other things that they could figure out. I mean, in 47 they had mass spectrometers, and they have some good scientists, and they can do what they can do, but they can't get very far. just the way Newton could probably take out a microscope and see, wow, look at all those little tiny wires inside that cell phone.
Yeah, it's the same concept. Now, with that, the Wilson Davis document, when it came out, don't need to spend a whole lot of time on the document itself, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. But one page grabbed my attention, and it's when Rear Admiral Thomas Wilson says to Eric Davis that he flew out. Now, we can assume it was Skunk Works. Okay, the company wasn't named in the document, but that he came out to the West Coast and met with 3 people from this company, and they said, "We have a craft. You want to see it?
Right.
We can't get it to fly." Now, isn't that an interesting and to have that in the conversation? So, and Wilson said he was upset about the special access programs and not having a way into this, and he says that they told him, "Go back to Washington, yell and scream. We don't care. It's not going to tell anybody you want. It doesn't matter." And that seems strangely accurate, strangely specific, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'm not really that familiar with that document, but that story is certainly, they have an arrogance or a confidence that that they're untouchable, and that really is the ultimate crime in my mind, is the hubris of them all to think that 1,000 cloistered scientists can be better than the 100 million scientists and engineers around the world or more that could apply their skills to reverse engineering and understanding. But I think it all has to do with gravity control, and my research into the history of anti-gravity says that the Glenn L. Martin Company started in '55 with a private little group called the Research Institute for Advanced Studies, headed by a guy by the name of Bunker and Trimble, and a bunch of other heavyweight mathematicians. And for the next few years, they figured out gravity control somewhere between, I would say, 57 and 63. And that's when they had the fundamental principles of how to do their own gravity control tools, and began to build our own U.S. manufactured or Earth manufactured craft rather than, ET stuff.
And why this is where the skeptic jumps in, so I'll play devil's advocate. Why haven't we seen this in use by our own military, or have we? Is that a big chunk of UFO sightings, and does that also explain, say, the Tic Tac?
Well, that's a great question. I think that the first thing is that we can't assume that the military has control of the technology or the specialized craft, and it may be some other organization, and they're outside or may have connections to the military and so forth. But the other thing, from operational security point of view, is you would not want to disclose to the adversaries of the United States that we have such a capability at all. So we would be very discreet about open use. I think the Tic Tacs might in fact be alien craft, but there's no reason why it couldn't be ours either. I don't know. But I suspect that most of the things that we see today that get reported, like your encounter in Sedona or other people's reports, or the triangle over Phoenix, for example, that was a huge report, our actual ET craft. So it's just hard to know. But from a military point of view, you wouldn't want to expose your super secret weapons until you absolutely had to for some reason.
What is I've got 800 questions on the front of my head. Let me get one out of the way. I've got to ask Ryan Wood. What do you have one part of the MJ12 stack that stands up to you and it's the one? I asked Stanton Friedman the same question, and him and I have talked about this many times over the years before he passed, and he always went to the Twining memo, right? He always went to the Twining memo. For you, what stands out?
Well, I mean, the Cutler Twining memo is interesting because it came from the National Archives. It's an original onion skin, but it just says NSC, National Security Council / MJ12, and it's a short little memo that is about a meeting. But no, the Special Operations Manual is the one that both my father and I are at the 99.9% confidence level, is being totally authentic and real, and the most damning of a cover-up, and most compelling. I mean, there are other ones. For example, the Bowen manuscript, which was on original onion skin, and it's the Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers by Vernon Bowen. I don't know if you've ever seen this one before, but it's on Amazon. And what's interesting is right on the top in ink in original onion skin, it says the highest classification for this document is top secret MAJIC, no foreign dissemination, for U.S. eyes only, exempt from declassification, errata, special handling required, as well as the Air Force chapter is stamped top secret MAJIC. So that's where you can do. There's pencil marks and pen marks, and you can find, oh yeah, they're old pencils and old inks, and you can do the forensic analysis of the type and ink. And you know who wrote it? Vernon Bowen, as we talked to the son of him, and he got the typewriter that he used, and he sent it to the Air Force in 1960, and it got returned from Fort Meade via the Freedom of Information Office in 1994, I think, or 98. I have to look it up. Sounds about right. Yeah. So a long time it just disappeared, and then came back. So but the number one thing for me has always been the Special Operations Manual, Extraterrestrial Entities, Technology, Recovery, and Disposal.
Why do you think Psalm 1 doesn't get the respect that it deserves, right? Okay, like say for instance, we've had these hearings, right, with Congress, and they entered the Wilson Davis document into the public record. Shouldn't they have been waving Psalm 1 around too as well?
Yeah, I think Grush didn't know about it, or didn't have it there, or I mean, in the earlier hearings or pseudo hearings that were done by the House of Representatives or former representatives that Bassett and somebody else did. I'm trying to remember the name. Greer sponsored. Linda Moulton Howe had it right there and read it and put it into the record, and did her best to highlight the details of the type of aliens and so forth. But yes, that should be the marketing and publicity effort. And I did my best by putting up the specialoperationsmanual.com website, which has been up for I don't know, 10 years, maybe 12 years. And it's got all the objections. It's fake because, and here's the response, and all the details about it. But if you pay attention to it, then people might give it more credibility. So if, that's the most credible one in my mind.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and like I told everybody at the beginning of the show, the links for Psalm 1 are below. And if you haven't, and most of you probably haven't, that's fine. We're all on a journey of discovery here. Go and check out Psalm 1. Start with the front cover. The cover is crazy. Right? I mean, the cover is basic as it is, but you start with that and you go page for page for page, and you just think to yourself, "This is like burn after reading stuff." I mean, it's right.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's pretty incredible.
Right. I mean, just reading the warning notice alone that's on every opposing page of the document should give people chills.
Yeah, absolutely. Why should, we're going to head to a break in a couple of minutes. We'll pick up on this when we come back, but we'll set it up now. Why should the government come clean?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. There's pros and cons. Every year they debate, is it a good idea to come clean or not? And every year the list is longer that we should keep hiding it. But ultimately, there's hell to pay no matter what, so they might as well do it earlier, in my mind. But in the new book that I have, the AI ufologist, I answered that very question. And why should they tell the truth, and why should they not tell the truth? And so we can talk about that after the break.
Yeah, let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Ryan S. Wood. I am your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours, or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. And right now, if you get a Game Changer membership for a limited time, you will get Fade to Black Blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. That's right. We have 2 t-shirts. We have the original, the classic Fade to Black t-shirt. You know you want one. Post a picture. Send it to us. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery. And we've got the new official Fade to Black t-shirt drawn by Michael Oming. 2 t-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yours today. Everything is in stock. Everything gets autographed. Everything includes shipping, and you're going to get a tracking number. And with a Game Changer membership, you get an email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads of the show. Those are uploaded every single night after the show to the website. So don't delay. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Ryan S. Wood. The S is there because there's a lot of other Ryan Woods running around. And that's just the way that it is. Ryan, shouldn't the government just rip the Band-Aid off, right? Yeah. And just get it over with?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's sort of my attitude, but I mean, for example, Richard Dolan wrote a book called AD, After Disclosure, where you sort of begin to understand the complexities of telling the truth. So if they say, well, yeah, we've had some crashed, Roswell was real. And then the next question is, well, can we see the bodies? No. Well, okay, you can see the body. Do you have any live ones? Well, no, we can't show you that. Did you do any blood work? Can we do DNA samples of the tissues of the alien? No, you can't do that. Well, maybe you can. Well, have you done any biological warfare experiments with these alien, materials? And it goes down this this spiral of complexity, and it goes to a lot of different aspects. And as we went to break, you posed the question, why is the government hiding the truth about extraterrestrial visitation and crashed UFOs? And this is from the AI ufologist book, and I'll just highlight 10 reasons, which I thought of maybe 5 of them when I first did the book. But the first one is the strategic advantage of technology. I mean, you're going to learn things that have a big advantage versus your competitors. The other thing is prevention of panic and social unrest. Some people just, are going to feel damn uncomfortable if there's another presence that's significantly advanced and very upsetting to a certain proportion of the planet. Then there's the typical national security concerns, as you might expect. Control over the advanced technology, well, if you've got a United States, well, can we have it China or Russia or Israel or France or NATO allies? We want to get our scientists working on this stuff too. And then avoiding public distrust and speculation is that, well, if you lied to us about Roswell, then you lied to us about what else? Everything else. You've been lying to us all along. And why in the world should we trust you? And then there's the notion of international diplomacy. Is that, do you want to tell some of your allies certain things and other allies other things or different things? And that's a big, and then here's the next one that'll just really get to people. Preservation of religious and cultural norms. Jesus was not the Son of God or whatever. He was an alien.
Right.
Muhammad was an alien. The religious orders would be confused at minimum. And then there's a bunch of scientific uncertainty and caution that might occur about, what does this technology really mean and how do I deal with it? And then, here's the one that'll piss everybody off, is the stock market's going to go crazy, because if you've got gravity control, then we rewired the energy complex and the value of the Saudi oil fields go down and the value of people's oil reserves in time change. And so there's this tremendous turmoil that would go on in the stock market for years as companies reorient themselves. And then the final thought is, well, have you started to talk to the aliens? Have you collaborated with the aliens? Do you have any treaties with the aliens that are outside the scope? And I think the answer is potentially yes. And that's, well, what have you said? Well, what's the deal? Okay, you get AT technology for abducting humans. Is that legal? What does international law say about that? So there's just like, oh my God, these are war crimes against humanity. So I'm just,
But see, that's the whole part about ripping off the Band-Aid, right? Because all of that is on the table.
Right.
And the legal analyst and the consult on the subject, it's just that. They just lay it out. We have got a lot of court time in our future. If right.
Yeah.
But here's the other part. It's a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just the United States. There have been crash retrievals in Iran, in Afghanistan, in Brazil, right, in Mexico, and other countries too as well.
In Russia and China.
Well, I'm leaving them off because obviously,
right,
the two biggest countries in the world, Russia has more land than like the moon, right, than Pluto. So So of course, right? So they're fully aware, and they've got their own programs going. But the idea that it's just a United States issue isn't really in play here, right? So come clean and deal with everything else later. The public knows we're not alone in the universe. They know this. It's the biggest question. Let's get it over with so we can move on, right?
Yeah, I think that's true, but it's really nuanced and complicated, and it's a question of, I mean, actually in the AI ufologist, I asked the question of how do you balance the need for transparency with the need for secrecy, and how do you do that well? And it maps out a strategy of telling the public some things and taking your time. So if you think back, 50 years ago, it would have been much more of a shock than it would be today because of the advent of public awareness and the radio and TV and movies and cultural acceptability of the extraterrestrial reality.
Well, artificial intelligence, let's circle back to that.
Yeah.
But the other point that you raised here, and we've heard it from the Rand Corporation and Condon and the different, committees that have written up stuff and spoken about this. But when the New York Times ran that headline in 2017, the world, we freaked for about a day. Religions didn't collapse. Cities didn't burn to the ground. Wall Street was just fine. And most of the world, that was the New York Times, right? Mm-hmm. It was out there. Most of the world went, oh, okay, well, yeah, well, of course we're not alone. Yeah. Right? That was the general, and I was pretty surprised about that, weren't you?
Well, I actually didn't pay much attention because I wasn't really focused on ufology then in 2017. But yeah, I think that the world goes on with an innocuous headline like that, or article that there's ET craft in the sky, and there's credible reports about abductions. I mean, Grush's testimony and the congressional hearings sort of put a new level of authoritative stamp on it, and Leslie Kean's leak in the debrief to ultimately get it to the New York Times and get it into the congressional record and have hearings held on it. That was an important step in the awareness, but they continue to march with the cover-up. I mean, the latest report was as bad as the original Roswell crash test dummies report of, I don't know, 20 years ago.
Yeah, 1990. That was 30 years ago.
30 years ago, right?
Yeah, that was 90. Well, the two reports, I think one was 95 and the second one was 98.
Yeah.
Roswell case closed. You remember that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll never forget that. And you guys see the whole fascination about all of this in the 90s. Half of my audience wasn't born. Okay, so right. They're listening to you and I. They don't. If you think that the New York Times and the Nimitz and everything, the Tic Tac is a big deal, and like that's no. Go back to 1995 with you and your dad and what was going on then. It was crazy town. This was, I mean, and then and if you throw all of that in, the MJ-12 documents, you had, you remember the sensation behind the alien autopsy video?
Oh, yeah. Kelly video and all that.
Yeah. All of this was going on all at the same time. And I could just keep adding to the pile.
Right.
1995, 96, 97, 98. It was insanity what was happening in the UFO community. It was absolutely nuts. And you guys were right at the center of it. And so many people were looking to you for answers and for your work that you were doing, analyzing page after page after page, looking at periods, right? Looking at commas, looking at Smith Corona typewriters, IBM Selectrics, whatever, all of that came into play. And you guys were at the center of that. Did you feel the weight of the importance of your analysis and how you guys were putting the work together to get it out? Was it a lot of pressure?
No, it was a lot of fun, actually. That was what was exciting for my dad and me. It was us working together on a lot of it. And we thought it was important. I mean, the whole 50th anniversary of Roswell was a big buzz. And then I ultimately became sort of frustrated with the MUFON conferences that went on, and decided that I could do a better job, and started the UFO Crash Retrieval conferences in Las Vegas in 2003. And then for 7 years, held them every year. 500 people from around the world came to Vegas for a weekend, and we talked about crash retrievals. And it gave voice to, so many of the people that are mainstays today. I mean, they were famous in their own rights then too, like Linda Moulton Howe or George Norrie and things like that. But up and comers like Michael Schratt or Dolan or Nick Redfern or others. There's a long list. Some are sort of faded away, but some keep at it. And that was and then George Knapp was right there. He was coming to all the conferences and giving discussions and keynotes. He sort of, at one of our dinner events, talked about the 2008 event in Laughlin, Nevada, where there was a crash retrieval style event, where helicopters came in and black sedans and so forth. And that's written up in MAJIC EYES ONLY, or a book as well. It's the last case. Whether or not it was really a crash or one of ours is unclear, but it has all the hallmarks of a crash retrieval style event.
Yeah. I talked to a couple of witnesses that were there, and one of them, they saw the craft fly over the town and then crashed in a riverbank or something.
Yeah.
And they said that it was immediately the military who was there, the black sedans and the SUVs, like they were following it, and they knew exactly what was going on. It wasn't a couple of hours later. It was like the craft flew over, crashed, and immediately the military was there. Like they were following it for quite a while and tracking it. Yeah, that's a pretty spectacular case. Now, what does AI say about the subject today? I mean, do you go? What kind of answers are you getting? And is it what's the word I want to use? Is it enlightening? Is it revolutionary?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the process I went through first, and then answer the question. So in my business as the CEO of Electric Fusion Systems, I was using artificial intelligence and trained it on a couple hundred peer-reviewed scientific papers. And this is not just ChatGPT. This was a specialized tool set that was used. And so I got some pretty interesting answers on the business side. And then I decided, well, crud, I got 500 books scanned and OCR'd in ufology. Why don't I just train this tool on it? And so I did, and asked it the first question. The most common one everybody has of, what's the ET agenda? Why are they here? What the hell do they want? And then within 30 seconds, boom, 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 I got 14 paragraphs. And I read the first 6 or 7 paragraphs and said, oh, I got that. Okay, I got that. Oh, wow, I forgot about that. And so that was my experience, is that about a third of the results were surprising to me. For somebody that's been in the UFO field for a long time. And then I started to give it increasingly sophisticated questions that were relevant to me. And the answers were robust and sophisticated. So it went from, what's the agenda to, why do they abduct humans, or why is there a
okay. So pump the brakes there, Ryan.
Yeah.
Let's back the truck up. Okay. Yeah. As it's spitting out answers to what the ET agenda is, what were some of the answers?
Well, let me just sort of grab it here and share with the audience what's the ET agenda. The first one was scientific study, as you sort of expect. They're coming here to check out this little planet and figure out. Their anthropologists are learning their emerging planet history. The other thing is resources. They want our gold, they want our iridium, they want to find water or what have you. They want to abduct humans. That sounds like a resource to me. There's the notion of benevolent guidance, want to guide us to a higher spiritual level. Some races maybe they're wanting to do that. Or there's the malevolent evil ones, that are doing nefarious things that maybe want to take over the planet in 1,000 years or something. I don't know. Then there's the notion that I sort of forgot here, that they just don't give a damn. It's sort of indifferent. It's like we think there's a motivation, but maybe it's just, they don't really care one way or the other. Survival. Hey, my planet's dying. I don't know how many Star Trek episodes there are about that. I got to go to a new planet. Well, it's us trying to get to Mars. That's Elon Musk's vision. Diplomatic relations. There may be some. You're an emerging planet. You just blew off an atomic bomb. Maybe it's time that we talk to you. You're getting to the point where you need some diplomatic thought. And the other thought is they're just observing this transition from atomic weapons to destroying ourselves or emerging as a different civilization. Experimentation. They want to experiment on either plants or animals or people, which sort of goes to genetic manipulation, where some of the evidence says that we've been tuned up every 10,000 years to get smarter and smarter. The anthropological record about our brains is kind of muddy. It doesn't follow strict Darwinian approaches. There's the salvation of the planet and the human species. Could they be trying to do that? Or maybe some races are trying to do that. And then preservation of the genetic stock. Where we get radiation and all this other stuff. Maybe they're taking samples for their zoo, and we are the zoo. And so it's things like preservation of genetic stocks. Yeah, I forgot that one.
Like a seed bank.
Yeah, or a seed bank. Yeah, that's good. That's good, Jimmy. Seed bank. Yeah.
Well, most people have lost sight on one thing. We are eventually going to leave this planet. That's it. Okay, so to suggest that that's crazy that ET would be interested in our beautiful blue ball, right? That there's a why? Well, look, we're going to blow this popsicle stand. We are. Our sun is going to force us to leave. All right. And there may be other, that's inevitable. So we do have to find another place to live eventually, just based on that alone. But what if there's something else, another event that happens that is out of our control, right? Some crazy gravity wave, some
meteor,
some kind of cosmic event, right? And so that changes radically the atmosphere and everything else here, that we can no longer sustain life on this planet. We are going to eventually leave. That's just it. So yeah, and if we build a starship and head out and in one direction, and we're looking for exoplanets right now, right? And we find one and we head out there and we go to it. What's the difference with ET doing the same thing coming here? Because their planet has blown up and they're out cruising through the solar system, right? And they find Earth. What's so crazy about that? Nothing is crazy about that. Right. We're going to do the same thing. We will be the aliens one day.
Yes, you're absolutely right. One day. And the question is sort of how long does Earth civilizations last? Are we on the 1,000-year sort of survival thing, or the 1,000,000-year survival thing? And we just don't know, because we don't have any perspective that long. I mean, so as an advanced civilization, I mean, Homo sapiens have been around for a long time, but we've certainly evolved. And terraforming Mars is not beyond realistic effort. I mean, all you have to do is give it another atmosphere again, which is sort of biology. And generating enough oxygen to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to AI and disclosure, artificial intelligence. One of the things that I've brought up a lot over the years, and certainly with Richard Dolan specifically, is that disclosure may happen out of the government's control. It could happen a variety of different ways. It could be a data dump. It could be some crazy thing that happens on the internet, on the dark web. It could be a giant ship that appears over Los Angeles. It could be a lot of different things out of the government's control. And we are always talking about disclosure coming from the government. But if it happens the other way and we find out that the government knew all along, that's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all goes back to trust. Do you trust your government? I mean, if you would ask the public or focus group, do you trust your government right now? I would say no. I mean, our Congress is dysfunctional and we don't get much done. And there's a lot of mistrust. But people tend to trust their local mayor more, because they can go into his office and pound on the desk. And it's tough to do that in Washington. So it's, yeah.
And in the time that we have left in this part of the show, I want to ask some fun questions, but the things that are on everybody's mind.
Great.
And that is this: you've done a lot of research into crashed retrievals, and that is kind of, especially today, an old school way of looking at it, the way that I look at it, right? Nuts and bolts, metal crap flying across, arriving here, landing, it's given to us, it crashes, whatever. There's that. But then we have to go behind that set of facts and ask the question, how do they do it? How do they get here? So what are your ideas behind that, and specifically propulsion systems? But are they flying for 10,000 years, or is there something else that they're doing?
Yeah, no, I guess my speculation is that they've figured out how to go faster than the speed of light, and not at the speed of light. And so in the classic Star Trek, motif, give me warp 4 or something. That's the speed of light to the fourth power, or something like that. So yes, they travel faster than the speed of light. I think the motherships are that do that, and then they have scout ships that may be visiting Earth and doing things like that. So they've conquered gravity control and faster than the speed of light, and probably the quantum vacuum of space, or the 0-point energy, which is a way of using energy to travel even when there's maybe no gravity around. Gravity control may not buy you the whole process. If there's no mass around to have gravity, you may need a different energy source or different way of traveling. So, intergalactic travel, it's just hard to understand. There's so many planets in our galaxy alone, let alone all the number of galaxies. So from a propulsion point of view, I think it's clearly faster than the speed of light, and with gravity control and time control too, and probably 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions in space and time is not enough. I think there's multiple, probably go up a few more dimensions. And then there's the notion that Eric Davis has highlighted before about wormholes and things like that. And I think those play a role.
They have to. Yeah.
Right. So
they have to. Well, and the reason why I jumped to that so quickly, I think that no matter what the distance is, whether it's across the universe or across a galaxy or across the Milky Way, it's done instantly. It's not done over 6 months or a year or 2 years. Why? When you hear about the description of these craft, you never hear, they're not describing the inside of an RV. Here's the kitchen area. Here's the entertainment center, right? It's just a chair, right? You know what I mean? There's no pictures. There's no pictures on the wall. There's no, there isn't a ping pong table.
Now, those are art constructs, but yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying. It's just a chair and a joystick. What? Right. And you're going to sit. Where's the bedroom?
Well, you're assuming they're sort of human-like. I mean, I think there might be more biological disposable droids that don't need much food or substance and can go for a long time.
That's part of it.
Here.
Yeah, that's part of it. That would have to be. Well, and the reason why, not only is that spot on, but there has to be an infinite amount of life out there of every type. So how they visit Earth and what visits Earth is as varied as the planets and stars in the universe.
Yep.
Some are just probes, like we're sending Curiosity to Mars. Some of it's that. Some of it's robots. Some of it's droids. Some of it could be just avatars or holographic projections and technology that would appear forms of consciousness. Some of it is just biological beings flying these craft. You know, it has to be as varied as the universe itself, right? So nothing surprises me anymore. And why should any of us be surprised that everybody's experience seems to be a little bit different from the other? That's because there's a lot of life out there, right?
Yeah, there is. There seems to be some consistency with the gray species and the abduction philosophy, but I don't really study abductions or lights in the sky or anything like that. It's just my specialty is documents and crashes and propulsion, really, and the science and technology, which is my day job. You know, in the end, I say, you know, when are they going to show up deliberately? And in my estimation, it's not until we have matured in some way. You know, we've gotten rid of our nukes or decreased them vastly, or we've decreased wars or eliminated them, or we've started to feed our race equally, or up the standard of living, and decreased the inhumanity of man to man, and maybe matured a bit, maybe by 2050 or 2060, hopefully, if things don't, you know, fade away, that the ETs may choose to make their presence known, and the ETs may, in fact, be in charge of the governments anyway, or the strategic elements of it, you know.
Yeah, once they have assurances that they're not going to get shot at. Well, you know, that's what we do, right? We shoot first and you know, ask questions later. What about, like I said, these are fun questions.
Mm-hmm.
You've looked at a lot of documents. But what about images? You must have seen just about everything. Have you seen an image where you went, okay, all right, yeah, this is legit?
Well, yeah, actually, I'll give you one old one and one new one. One old one was in Santa Ana, California, in the
Rex Heflin.
Yeah, it was the Rex Heflin, but it had this big smoke ring around it. I mean, you see the saucer there, and then it disappears in this giant smoke ring. And I'm going, what sort of anti-gravity work leaves a smoke ring? That sounds like hydrocarbons. It sounds like you're burning shit. And
right.
And that's confusing in my mind still. And then one of the more recent ones was, you know, Nick Pope saw it in the MOD, Ministry of Defense in the UK, of this sort of double diamond shaped one that was in the UK, and it was taken photographs in the newspaper, and then sort of hidden for a while, and then finally declassified. With that shape and the clarity of the picture was impressive to me. It was a fresh. I hadn't seen that one before, and I go, "That's really good." It was
okay, but the question was: have you or your father had something sent to you?
Oh, no. I mean, well, that's Tim Cooper, part of the various drops of documents. We got a big stack of Polaroids, some of pictures of microfilm on the screen. One was interesting in that it was a picture of White Sands Proving Grounds and had a big box in Sharpie, and it said Area 29. And Area 29 is the northwest west corner of White Sands Proving Grounds near the Stallion Station, and where Star Wars laser development in the Reagan eras was done, and not far from one of the crashes in Aurora Peak in the Roswell timeframe era. So that's an example of an interesting photograph that was supplied. Some were, more pedestrian, but nothing that. There was some grainy photos of what looked like a television screen showing crash retrievals in the desert of New Mexico, and then a photograph taken of it. And some of it's posted to the website. I think I still have a few of the images here in a folder, but there's nothing really interesting. So to speak.
Why do you think that is? I have. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time here in saying this, but I have seen some crazy stuff, daylight insanity, like the real deal, but didn't get a video. I didn't get a shot. And even I have the same statement come out of my mouth when I say or describe these events. I didn't get a video. I didn't get a picture. And that's the other part about this. Why is it always just one step away from what everybody wants? Right? Even the Tic Tac, it's cool, but it's still crap. Right? It's why is it always just a step away from us?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's the human nature of shock and surprise and oddity, and the logical thinking sort of disappears for the moment of where's the binocular, where's the cameras, get some more witnesses sort of thinking may leave you. It's more of, it's almost like, why do people watch, water spouts or tornadoes come closer and closer and closer to them before they get mowed over? They're just mesmerized. So that's one thought as to why we don't see more of it, or there's not more evidence. Some people are trying to do a good job of instrumentation and analysis. I think of the whole Skinwalker Ranch, and before that, Bigelow and the National Institute of Discovery Science in NIDS, where Eric Davis used to work, and where they had some weird stuff going on, where they continue to try to document it in increasingly sophisticated instrumentation and science.
Avi Loeb is doing his best with that right now too, as well. But if you think about it, and you go back to Donald Kehoe and him literally screaming from the mountaintops, and J. Allen Hynek with the same sentiment. We need scientific study on it. We need to apply the scientific aspect to this. We need that kind of research. We need to figure out what's going on. And here we are 50 years later, after all of their efforts, right, saying the exact same things. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and fundamentally, the government's done a good job of sweeping up as much evidence as possible. But to give you a concrete example, the layered bismuth magnesium part that people have, and Linda Moulton Howe has, that needs $250,000, $1 million worth of R&D associated with these layers of bismuth magnesium and alterations, and how do you do vapor deposition on them? How do you do analysis? What are their electrical properties? Take it to the whole next level of science. And that's just one example of where money and scientific method could increase our understanding around that. And then also gravity. I mean, I believe they cracked the gravity code back in the late 50s. it needs to be done again. Is that who's studying gravity? Who, I mean, is there a bunch of money being applied to mathematicians and physicists to do research, to do experimentations, to try to manipulate gravity with magnetic fields or anti-Helmholtz coils, or asymmetric capacitors, or all these other potentially promising avenues of investigation that aren't being done because they aren't being funded by the government or private industry. And there's a huge prize there, but nobody's putting up the dollars to do the science. And that's the reality, and that's the missing ingredient.
I need some help here, and you're the right person to ask this. MJ12, right?
Yep.
Okay, then we have the MAJIC references for MAJIC Eyes Only. Okay. What's the connection between the two? Is MJ12, and we've heard all different versions of this, Majestic 12, but MJ12 is referenced in the documents, and MAJIC Eyes Only as a security reference.
Yeah.
What's the connection there, or is there one?
Yeah, they're the same thing. In essence, MAJIC, MAJIC, Military Assessment of the Joint Intelligence Committee, is the top secret code word. I mean, the official White Hot report says that Truman signed in September 24th, 1947, the authorization of Majestic 12, a top secret research and development intelligence gathering organization. So that was the formation of the program. Before then, they were playing with stuff and they were gathering stuff, and Vannevar Bush had stuff. But at that point in 47, when the CIA was formed and when the Atomic Energy Commission was formed, and the separation of the Army and the Air Force occurred in that September 47 timeframe, things got launched, and it kept progressing. It may be not called Majestic 12 anymore, but that's when it started its trajectory, and they're synonyms.
After the core of MJ12, and let's just say, I'm just going to go with the broad time frame. Let's go to say 1990. Okay, so 47 to like 1990. If anybody after that point or after 1980 said that they were part of MJ12, would you buy that? Right? Or is somebody making something up?
Yeah, most likely. But it's all about credibility. And that's fascinating. Can you prove it, sir? That's what the first thing the New York Times reporter is going to ask is, we got to verify this with 3 independent sources. And I think that, the directors of the CIA and the NSA and NRO are not briefed on anything high level. It's a black budget line item. If there is something there, or maybe most of it is outside. I mean, if you can control gravity, you can make your own money. You can make your own electricity. You can make your own gold. You can basically fund yourself without authorization and pay people, provided you have, you're your own cartel, so to speak. And it could be totally off books, or outside.
Right. Well, so what the MJ12 documents and you and your dad's work did for me, fascinating, and there's sections of it for me were completely 100% solid. There's just too much to it. There's just too much. It seems solid. But here's the other part. I think it's another era. And when MJ-12 really started to roll in the 90s, and I would hear somebody, I'm not going to name names, right? But I would hear somebody or somebody say, well, yeah, I just got a phone call from the MJ-12 and this is what's going on. I immediately checked out, right? They are using the popularity of what is going on in the discussions and trying to use MJ-12 as a point of fact in their own career, or their own life, or their own UFO research. I immediately checked out. You know what I mean? It's like, no, stop with that. And you are hurting the subject itself of MJ-12 and discrediting it by saying these things today. Right. And that's it. And what do you make of other researchers? Certainly Stanton has been right there, but the Lindas and the Dolans of the world, what's their position on MJ-12?
Well, I think Linda's, I'd say all of them are in uniform agreement that the Special Operations Manual is the most credible, exciting, and powerful of the leaked Majestic documents. And others, like Linda, for example, Linda Moulton Howe, she's very impressed with the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit, which has also been validated, or not validated, but acknowledged through Freedom of Information Act requests that, yes, there really was the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit, part of the Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence, Technical and Scientific Branch of the Air Force, or Intelligence, G2. So the answer is, if you get them in a room and you give me enough time, I think I can convince them everything is legit within reason. But they may have, they like some more than others, but nobody has raised any big objections. But I guess going back to your earlier comment, I once was at the San Francisco office of former intelligence officers, and this is in the 90s. And I had a copy of the Majestic documents, and there was an old timer there who used to work for the CIA. Actually, he used to work for the OSS, which was the precursor of the CIA. It was the one before. And I showed him this book, and he flipped through it and read a few things. And his conclusion was, there is so much smoke here that there's clearly some fire. And that was sort of his gut reaction in a flash that, yep, there's something to it all. Because
can I ask you, we've got just a few minutes left. With Congress, with the House, and with the Senate, and these revelations that have been coming at them, do you think that behind the scenes there are voices that are coming to them now and saying, okay, we let you have your fun with this, especially after David Grush, right, in his testimony. Okay, we let this, but now it's time to stop.
Yeah.
Right? That the House is not going to go any further with it. The Senate Intelligence Committee isn't going to be allowed to take things any further. Do you think that that's the future of this? And with the senator or with any other elected official, including the president, only has so much juice and can only take it so far. They think they can do whatever, right? As Congress or House or representative or senator, yeah. But certainly that's probably not the case, right?
Yeah, I suspect that you can't control Congress or individual Congress people. I mean, I certainly took the opportunity to send my book to a dozen members of that House committee. And I don't think you can tell Ocasio-Cortez what to do. And if she gets a bug up her tail about it, she may want to have another hearing or push at it, or Chuck Schumer. But I'm not sure that the intelligence community validated any of their concerns and said, you shouldn't keep going. I think they just sort of ignored them and let them do whatever they want, because if they acknowledge it, then there may be a bigger problem. I wonder whether or not the president, some presidents have been briefed, others. Biden is an interesting case in that he's been in the Senate for so long and been on so many different committees, so many different presidents, and he's president now, that I think he knows enough to realize that, if I want to learn more, I can, but this is not a good time to be barking up the alien tree before the presidential election. He could maybe disclose next year if he gets reelected. So I think that the intelligence people that know are just ignoring Congress and let them do their thing. Do you think
that? Well, do you think we've just got 60 seconds left? And by the way, thank you. We've got all of your websites up. Everybody go to Amazon, get the book. And I want to get that out of the way. The links are right there in front of everybody. Do you think that disclosure is imminent, though? Do you think that it's gone to the point where it's now tangible and we can kind of feel this moment is about to happen? What's your gut telling you?
Yeah, I'm probably on the outside. My gut is saying no, we're not close, and it's more like we have to do the hard work of upgrading our planet, and maybe if we get it done by 2050 or 2060, when I die, that maybe they'll decide to show up, barring any other planetary sanity that might overcome us. Like if we decided to all band together and get rid of all our nukes, I don't know. I think they might show up.
Yeah. That's not going to happen next week. That's the crazy part about all of it. We know that the truth hasn't been given to us on this subject.
Yeah.
We know that. We know that the universe is too big. There's tons of life out there. We know that too. The other part is, and all of the abduction phenomenon, the witnesses, everybody that has seen something, including myself, they need that support from the government. Anything else is not really disclosure for them. Right? And I get that. I understand until, you have that live presser from the Oval Office, right? Until that happens, everything else is just not good enough. And I get the reasons why. Ryan, you've done more for disclosure and this community than just about anybody else. And your efforts and everything, I want to thank you on behalf of the community. Thank you for taking the time tonight. And keep doing what you're doing, man. And the community really thanks you and appreciates you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. And my father, too, Dr. Bob, thanks you.
Ryan, behave.
All right.
I'll talk to you. Thank you so much. Ryan Wood. That was a perfect show right there. Thank you so much, Ryan. Again, 3 websites, 3 links are below. Go in and hit up Amazon too as well, and help support Ryan and get your knowledge on. Go and visit the Majestic websites and go visit Psalm 1 and spend some time doing some research. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great show tonight. Tomorrow night with us is Nancy Thames. We're going to be talking about the truth of ET contact. All right. And that is tomorrow night. Right now, all I have to say is this show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, John on Side. Thank you, Dex. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Till tomorrow night with Nancy Thames. I want you to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.